Okay, good evening, students. Today we are at day 4 of week 2, and today we are going to discuss research process and design. Okay, so already what we did for the last 3 days. First, we have discussed fundamentals of research, research meaning of research, characteristics of research, types of research, paradigms of research. Then we had discussed experimental design and the 10 validity threads, then descriptive research, historical research, and again in day 3 we had discussed the qualitative versus quantitative research, then mixed methods of research, sampling and various measurement skills. Today we are going to discuss the research journey, basically step by step process from problem to publication plus research design. So today's learning objectives are basically, by the end of today you will understand first what is research process. There are basically 10 steps in research process. Then how to identify research problems, then literature review techniques, then hypothesis formulation. Part 2 is basically research design, like types of research design, choosing appropriate design, variable and operational definitions. Then comprehensive coverage with examples. We are going to discuss all various examples. Now, to start with, what is research process? So research process is the systematic sequence of steps from problem identification to communication of findings. Okay, so it is a systematic sequence of steps from problem identification to communication of findings. Now the question is, if I will not follow a process, what will happen? Obviously, you will not get clarity of what you are doing, right? Now the question is, why to follow a process? It ensures a systematic approach. It maintains logical flow. It reduces errors and bias. It makes research replicable. It provides a clear roadmap. Okay, so these are the various reasons for which we should follow a process, right? Now, like what is the analogy here? Like building a house, you need foundations, then walls, then roof, then finishing. You cannot skip steps or reverse the order. Similarly, in research also we have to follow the process. Now, what are the 10 steps in research process? First, to begin with, you have to identify the research problem. Second, review of literature. Then formulation of hypothesis. Then research design. Fifth, data collection. Sixth, analyze the data. 7, interpret the results. 8, draw conclusions. 9, prepare report. 10, present and publish findings. So, some steps may overlap or may be iterative, but logical sequence must be maintained, right? Yeah, of course, you cannot present or publish findings before you identify research problem. Okay, so just it is being said that sometimes some like steps may overlap, but largely they will be like in order, right? Steps 1 to 5 and steps 6 to 10. Correct? Now step 1. To identify research problem. Then what is a research problem? A question or issue that needs investigation. That is the starting point of research. Now question is, from where I will get research problems? First is gaps in existing literature. And next is how you will get the gaps in the existing literature. Then practical problem in society and economy. Then personal experiences and observations. Inconsistent findings in previous research. Then extending or replicating the previous studies. Then theoretical puzzles or contradictions. So these are the different sources of research problems, right? Now the example, suppose for example, why does unemployment persist despite economic growth? What factors affect women's labor force participation in India? How effective is GST in revenue generation? So these are the some of the research problems. So you have to ask some pertinent questions. Then characteristics of good research problem. A good research problem should be clear and specific. It should be well defined, not vague. Example, not poverty but factors affecting rural poverty in Odisha. Most of the time students or even if faculty members also, they casually use the word poverty, but no, you should clearly define. Then it should be significant. It should be important to the theory or practice. It should contribute to the new knowledge. Third is feasible. It can be investigated with the available resources, time and skills. Data is basically accessible. You cannot like come up with some fancy research problem where the data is not available or accessible. Then novelty. The research problem must not already fully answered. It adds something new. Okay. Now next step is to formulate the problem statement. The problem statement is clear, concise statement of the issue to be investigated. So a good problem statement is to state the problem clearly, to identify key variables, to specify population or context, and it can be answered through research. Suppose for example, poor problem statement, what about inflation? But a good problem statement is what is the impact of inflation on household consumption patterns in urban India during 2020 to 2024. Why it is a good problem statement? Because clearly the independent variable is coming out very nicely, that is inflation. The dependent variable is consumption and the context is urban India and the time. Okay, so it is a clear problem statement. Now once you clearly state your problem, next step is we have to do the review of literature. So what is literature review? It is a systematic examination of existing research on the topic. The purpose is to understand what is already known, to identify gaps in knowledge, to avoid duplications, to refine research questions, to build theoretical framework, to learn methodologies used by others. And from where you will get the literature? From academic journals which are peer reviewed, books and dissertations, conference proceedings, government reports. Okay, so let me say, yeah. So these are the various sources of literature. Please note it down. One second. Okay. Now, how to conduct literature review? What are the steps? So, first step is to search for the relevant literature. Use the keyword and the database, right? I will do a extensive research, I think a session tomorrow maybe on literature review to help the students. But how we basically approach is always we start with a broad theme and then we narrow down to, you can say, a particular topic, right? So let me write it, and then we have to identify the proper keyword also. Okay, so you will see keyword is the most important strategy to search appropriate literature. So there are various databases from where you can identify the researcher. So means basically the relevant literature. Some of the databases Google Scholar, then Web of Science, then Scopus. Okay. So always start, suppose broad. Suppose let's say that I want to start with unemployment and inflation. Then I will narrow down to, let's say that India case, right? Global to Indian case, right? Then to evaluate and select sources like relevance, quality and credibility. To prefer peer reviewed. One second, let me. So this is the, just give me a second. So we have to remove, wipe it out, otherwise it will be there. Because on the screen we are writing. Okay. So okay. So then evaluate and select sources like relevance, quality, credibility. You should prefer peer reviewed and recent resources. Then read and analyze. You have to take notes and identify the themes, note methodologies, findings and gaps. Then fourth, synthesize and organize, group by themes or chronologically, compare and contrast findings and write the review. Next step is formulate hypothesis. So the question is, what is a hypothesis? So hypothesis is a testable prediction about the relationship between the variables, right? So the characteristics of hypothesis is specific. It should be specific and clear. It should be testable empirically. It states expected relationship. It is based on theory or literature. Example 1, let's say that what are the some of the examples we will see. The hypothesis 1, higher education level leads to higher income. So clearly the education is the independent variable and the income relationship and positive basically because we are saying higher income. So those are dependent variable. Income is the dependent variable. And in hypothesis 2, inflation negatively affects consumer spending. So inflation is the independent variable. Dependent variable is spending and the relationship is negative. Okay. So clearly your hypothesis should be very clear and it should be specific and clear. And you can test them empirically, means basically through statistics or various alternative regression models or any t-test or any other test. You can test them, and most importantly it should be based on theory or literature. Okay. So next question is, what are the different types of hypothesis? Null hypothesis, it states no relationship or no difference. Especially null hypothesis is what we try to reject. Like example, there is no relationship between education and income. Then alternate hypothesis is basically H, which states that there is a relationship or difference and what we try to support. Example, there is a positive relationship between education and income. Because we have started, just you see, we have started with there is no relationship between education and income, but in alternate hypothesis, we are saying that there is a positive relationship between education and income. Right? And third, directional and non-directional. Directional, it specifies the direction, whether it is positive, the relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable is positive or negative, higher or lower. And it is non-directional, it just states there is a relationship. Okay, so these are the, you can say, very crucial steps, very relevant, right, steps. Otherwise what will happen that if your hypothesis, framing of hypothesis is not clear, then you will end up in actually wrong conclusion or inference. So the research tests the hypothesis, null hypothesis, and decides to reject or to fail to reject it. Now, hypothesis formulation. Let's check some examples. The research question is, does microfinance access improve women's entrepreneurship? So the null hypothesis here is, access to microfinance has no effect on women's entrepreneurship rates. An alternate hypothesis H is, access to microfinance increases women's entrepreneurship rates. Right? So what are the variables over here? The independent variable is microfinance access, which is yes or no. The dependent variable is entrepreneurship rate, which is measured as percentage starting business. Okay, so please see, and you ask me after the session if you are having any doubts. Now step number 4, to design research. Then the question is, what is a research design? The overall strategy or blueprint for conducting research, which connect research question to data collection and analysis. Already we know some basics of research design. In research design, you should have a clear research method, which might be experimental or descriptive, a clear sampling strategy. You should be very clear regarding the data collection techniques and variables and their measurement, timeline and budget, and ethical consideration. And these are very key decisions in research design. So the goal here is to ensure research can answer the question validly and reliably. Next step is collect data. So data collection is basically systematic gathering of information relevant to research questions. Now next, is what are the different types of data, like primary data, which is collected firsthand by the researcher. Methods already we have discussed, like survey, interview, experiment and observations. It is fresh and specific to research question. And secondary data, it is already collected by others, and the sources are census, economic status, reports and databases, which saves time and cost. The quality checks are accuracy, completeness and consistency. Then step number 6, to analyze the data. Data analysis is basically the processing and examining the data to extract meaningful patterns and test the hypothesis. You can do both quantitative analysis as well as the qualitative analysis. In quantitative analysis, you can do descriptive statistics, where you can find the mean, median, standard deviation and frequency. And then in inferential statistics, you can do t-test, ANOVA, regression, chi-square, and you can use statistical software such as SPSS, Stata, R, Python, Excel. And qualitative analysis is basically coding to identify themes and patterns, and then do content analysis to analyze text and documents. You can use the software like NVivo and Atlas. So the key here is to match the analysis method to research design and the data type. Then step number 7, and to interpret the results. So making sense of analyzed data, then what do the findings mean? So question to address here is, do results support or reject hypothesis? What patterns emerged? How do findings relate to the existing literature? What are unexpected results? What are alternative explanation and so on? Suppose in the example, we can see that the correlation coefficient is 0.65, and that is between the education and income, right? The correlation coefficient between the education and income. The interpretation is strong positive correlation exists. It means as education increases, income tends to increase, and relationship is statistically significant, and it supports the hypothesis. So you have to interpret the statistical results. Most of the time what happens is just people don't interpret the results, and that is very you can say that problem is not means if you will not interpret it, then the output whatever you are producing, it will be very monotonous. So step number 8, the conclusion is the final judgment based on the interpreted results. So good conclusions should directly answer research question, link back to the hypothesis, acknowledge limitations, discuss implications, that is theoretical and practical, suggest future research directions, and avoid overgeneralizing beyond data, introducing new information, making claims stronger than evidence, confusing correlation with causation. So what you are observing here is your conclusion should be directly linked to the research question where you have started with, like when you have started the research process itself. So good conclusion is very important. Now step number 9, to prepare report. So the research report is a formal written documentation of entire research process and findings. So the standard structure is, your report should have a title, It should have a clear, concise description. It should have an abstract, which is a basically brief summary of what you are doing, or what you have done, or what you have accomplished. Then you should have an introduction. In introduction you should have background, problem and objectives, and a literature review. You should have previous research, right? Both existing theory and empirical research papers you have to review. So next is methodology, where you can design the research design, sample or data collection, and the results are basically findings with tables and graphs. Then discussion, the interpretation, then conclusion is basically summary and implications. The references are all sources cited, and appendices, basically it will include the additional materials. So please follow this standard structure of preparing a research report. Next step is to present and publish the findings. So dissemination of result is very important, because you are sharing the research findings with academic community and public. So what are the different methods of disseminating the research? So academic dissemination means journal articles, conference presentations, books or book chapters, dissertation and thesis. And then in public, you can write policy briefs, media articles, public lectures, social media or blogs, right? So these are two different dimensions, or two different alternative methods through which you can share your results or findings, your research findings. So this step is very important, because research is incomplete until we share. Now, as already we have remembered, the research process involves 10 steps. So to identify the problem means what to study, to review literature, what is already known, to formulate hypothesis, what do we predict, to design research, how to study, collect data means gathering information, and to analyze data, that is to process information, then interpret results, what does it mean, draw conclusion, to answer research questions, prepare report, document everything, present or publish. You have to share the findings. So what you have to remember is, the process is iterative, may need to revise earlier steps based on the latter findings. Like for example, your review of literature, it is not coming nicely. It means there is a problem with the research problem, or you have not identified the research problem very nicely, or you are not able to formulate the hypothesis. It means you have not well read on the literature, right? So that is why the process is iterative in nature. Now next is, what is research design? So research design is the framework or plan for collecting and analyzing data to answer research questions. The purpose is to provide, research design provides structure to research. It ensures valid and reliable results. It guides methodological decisions. It connects question to conclusion. The analogy is like an architect's blueprint for a building. The key components are method, different research methods, sampling, data collection and analysis plan. So all these are part of the research design. So what are the different type of research design? Research design can be classified in multiple ways based on the purpose. It can be exploratory, descriptive and explanatory. Then based on the time, it might be cross-sectional or longitudinal. Based on the method, it should be experimental or quasi-experimental or non-experimental. Then based on data, it should be quantitative or qualitative or mixed methods. Now, let's focus on what is exploratory research design. Now, the purpose is to explore new or poorly understood phenomena to gain insights to generate ideas. When used, basically exploratory research design when to use, if you don't know or you know little about the topic, you need to identify the variables and you need to generate hypotheses for future research. You have to understand the problems better. And what are the different methods? Literature review, case studies, focus groups, pilot studies. So, suppose for example, you are trying to explore or you are working on exploring the impact of AI on employment in India. So, this is a new area, right? So, that is why you can use exploratory research design. Similarly, descriptive research design. So here the purpose is to describe the characteristics of population or phenomena and to answer what, right? When you will be using this? To describe the current situation, to identify the document characteristics, then to identify the patterns, and there should not be any manipulation of variables. Then what are the different methods? Survey, observational studies, case studies. Example census. It describes the population demographic. Limitation, it cannot establish the causation. Then explanatory research design. It explains relationship and test causal hypothesis, answers why, because it understands the cause and effect relationship. You can test theories, you can explain phenomena, you can build on descriptive findings. What are the different methods of explanatory research design? Experiments, quasi-experiments and advanced statistical analysis. Like example, does education cause higher income? So basically we are trying to study the causation. And the strength is, we can establish the cause and effect with a proper research design. But if a research design is flawed or there is a lot of error, then you cannot establish the cause and effect. Next is cross-sectional research design. So here the data collected, what is cross-sectional data? The data collected at one point in time from different groups. The characteristics of cross-sectional research design is a snapshot. Basically when you need a snapshot approach, it studies different groups simultaneously. It is quick and inexpensive. It is the most common design. The example is, let's say that if you survey 1000 people in January 2026 about voting preferences to compare income across different education levels in 2026. So the advantage is it is fast, cheap and it can compare groups. But what are the limitations? It cannot show changes over time. It cannot establish the causation definitely. Then longitudinal research design. The data collected at multiple points in time from same subjects. The characteristics of a longitudinal research design is it tracks changes over time. In the same, basically you are trying to study the same individuals or units studied repeatedly. It is basically based on long durations like months to years and it is more expensive. The different type of longitudinal research design includes panel study, that some individuals over time, cohort study, group with common characteristics, trend study, different sample from same population. So example is to follow 500 students from class 10 to graduation. Then the advantage is it shows the actual change and better causality evidence, right? Then next is experimental research design. So what are the key features? it manipulates independent variable, random assignments to groups, and control groups are present over here. It can establish the causation. What are the different types? Basically, it is true experimental, means there is a random assignment plus control group, and it is the strongest for the causation. Quasi-experimental, where there is no random assignment, basically you are studying with the existing groups. Then it is good when randomization is not possible, right? And then pre-experimental research design is also there. I think we have already discussed at length when we have discussed the experimental research design. Then non-experimental research design, right? What is the non-experimental research design? It means no manipulation of variables. It means observing, or when you observe naturally occurring phenomena. So what are the different types? First is correlational. Correlational means you examine the relationship between the variables. You cannot establish causation. And there is a survey research. Basically, survey research is basically when you collect data through questionnaires. It might be descriptive or correlational. And third is observational. You assess and records behavior, no intervention. And when you cannot manipulate independent variable ethically or practically. So there you can use non-experimental research design. So largely I think in economics also we do non-experimental research design, and experimental design also is very popular. Then case study design. In-depth investigation of single case, that is individual, group, organization or event. The characteristics of case study design is detailed, comprehensive analysis, multiple data sources, contextual understanding, and it is basically, not might be, qualitative or mixed method. The different types of case study design, it is intrinsic. The case itself is of interest. Instrumental, case illustrate broader issue. Multiple case, compare several case. Example study of successful microfinance institutions in Bangladesh. So here what is important is risk, detail but limited generalizability. Then mixed method design. We are basically doing a recap. Already we have discussed. So it combines quantitative as well as qualitative approach. So there are three main designs: convergent parallel, which collect quant and qualitative data simultaneously, merge result for comprehensive view. Then second is sequential explanatory, quantitative first, then qualitative explains, and use qualitative to understand quantitative findings. Then third is sequential exploratory, qualitative first, then quantitative test. So to use equal to develop survey instruments. Now choosing the right research design, because this is a very crucial stage. You cannot afford to commit any error in this stage. So what are the key questions over here? What is your research questions? Like exploratory question, then you will be having an exploratory design. If your research question is a descriptive question, then you will be having a descriptive design. If your research question is a causal question, then you will be having an experimental design. Then what resources do you have? If you are having limited time or money, then you will be having a cross-sectional study or secondary data. If you are having adequate resources, then you will prefer longitudinal or primary data. Then what are the ethical constraints? If you cannot manipulate, then you should go for non-experimental research design. If you can manipulate ethically, then you go for experimental research design. Then now the next is what is known about the topic. If the topic is little known, then you have to go for the exploratory research design. And if the topic is already well established, then you will go for the explanatory research design. So this is very important. Your research design is linked or aligned with your research questions. So that is why we always start with the research questions. If you cannot ask the research questions, then you cannot link the research design. Right? So now variables in research design. What is a variable? any characteristics that can vary or take different values. So that is basically variable. So types by role, independent variable. The presumed cause, what researcher manipulates in experiments. The dependent variable, that is dB, that is the presumed effect. So what researcher measures. Third is moderating variable, which affect the strength of independent variable and the dependent variable relationship. Example, the gender moderates education and income relationship. So there are three types of variable: independent variable, dependent variable, and moderating variable. Then next 6 basically mediating variable. Like I think in psychological studies we find more, largely in economics we use independent variable and dependent variable, but other variables are more prominent in different social science research. So fourth is mediating variable. Basically it explains how independent variable affect the dependent variable. Example, education, skills, income. Skill, where the skill mediates control variable, which is held constant to isolate the independent variable effect. Example, control age when studying education and income relationship. Confounding variable, uncontrolled variable that affect the dependent variable and it threatens internal validity. Example, to study the effect of study time, which is an independent variable, on the exam score, that is a dependent variable. And to control prior knowledge and intelligence, confound if not control, to study method quality. Then operational definitions. What is operational definitions? You should specify exactly how a variable will be measured or manipulated. Why it is important? You make abstract concepts concrete, ensures replicability, reduces ambiguity, and it allows measurement. Example, concept basically intelligence, let's say that. So the operational definition is basically score on Stanford Binet IQ test. Concept poverty. Operational definition, household income below rupees 47 a day, that is a World Bank threshold. So similarly, job satisfaction, you have to have a operational definitions. Now next is validity and reliability in research design. So validity is, does it measure what it claims? How you will check it? There are different types: internal validity, external validity, construct validity, and content validity. And the reliability is basically consistency of measurement. Test, retest, inter-rater, internal consistency, parallel forms. Remember, research can be reliable but not valid, but it cannot be valid without being reliable. This is a very important line. Then pilot study. What is pilot study? Small scale preliminary study to test research instrument and procedures. The purposes are to test questionnaire clarity, to check the data collection feasibility, to identify potential problems, to refine procedures, to estimate time and cost, to test analysis methods, and the process is to conduct with small sample, that is 10 to 50, to analyze results, to make necessary modifications, and then conduct full study. Research ethics. Why ethics in research? It protects participants, maintain integrity, ensures trust in research. The key ethical principles: informed consent, basically participants know the purpose, procedure, risk. Then voluntary participation, they can withdraw participant can withdraw anytime. Then confidentiality and privacy, you have to protect the participant identity, secure data storage. Then anonymous reporting. Then do no harm, to minimize physical and psychological risk, to benefit outweigh risk. More ethical consideration. Honesty and integrity, report all results, including negative, no fabrication or falsification, no plagiarism. You have to acknowledge the limitation, proper attribution, cite all sources, give credit to contributors, avoid self-plagiarism. Even if you have published already a research paper, you cannot copy from that same paper. If you are doing it, then it will be self-plagiarism. Then ethical review, institutional review board, that is IRB approval, ethics committee clearance, especially for vulnerable populations. So now, what are the today's key learning we have learned so far? First is the research process, which involves 10 steps. First is identify problem, what to study. Review literature, what is known. Formulate hypothesis, what do we predict. Design research, how to study. Collect data, gather information. Analyze data, process information. Interpret results, what does it mean. Draw conclusion, answer questions. Prepare report, that is document. Present and publish, that is share the research output. So the hypothesis is basically the testable prediction. You can have two type of hypothesis. One is null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Let's try to do some practice questions. I think let's see. One second. This is visible. Madhusita?
Yes, sir.
Then there is no purpose. Answers are visible. But we can discuss, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Which of the following is not a step in the research process? Formulation of research problem, analysis of data, random speculation of results, then review of literature. Which one, Madhusmita?
Sir, as answer is also there.
Where?
So three is the appropriate answer.
3 is the appropriate answer. Which of the following is not a step in the research process? Okay. So random
Yes, sir.
speculation about result is not a correct step in the research process. Okay. So it is not a systematic research process. It is not a part of the systematic research process.
Yes, sir.
So now let me ask you one more question related to research process. How many steps of research process are there?
Sir, 10 steps. 10 steps.
10 steps. Very good. Next question. A hypothesis that states there is no significant difference in learning outcome between online and offline teaching is which type of hypothesis? Alternate hypothesis, null hypothesis, directional hypothesis, and research question. Which one? Madhusida, which one?
Sir, as the keyword also there in the question, there is a no significant difference. So it is the null hypothesis. Answer is the null hypothesis.
Yes, why it is null? Because null is what we don't want.
Yes, sir.
Right? There is no significant difference. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So we start with the null hypothesis. Right?
Yes, sir.
Null hypothesis means no relationship. You have to remember. Null means no.
Yes, sir.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So if the questions are better than previous sessions, right?
Yes, sir.
Because these are real questions, right? Which I think you have helped to get it, right?
Yes, sir. But sir, basically the research designs frequently asked by the UGC and the plagiarism also and ethics validity also.
I will come to that.
Yes, sir.
But the answers are given here, but don't worry about the answer. Let us focus on the discussion. So, arrange the following steps in correct sequence: data collection, hypothesis formulation, problem identification, data analysis, and literature review. Please do it. First, first which one? Tell me. Problem identification is the first. Ajay, very good. Ajay is the very active member of our group. One. Then, after identifying the problem, then what you will be doing? Literature review. Very good. Literature review. Next step. CE. Then what is the next? After CE, then formulation of hypothesis. Excellent, Ajay. Then formulation of hypothesis, then data collection. Okay, 4. Then data analysis. Very good. After the data analysis, report writing will be there, right? If there would have been another option, report writing. So, which research design is most appropriate for studying how does unemployment affect the mental health over 5 years? Cross-sectional, longitudinal, exploratory, experimental. Madhusudha,
Sir, longitudinal.
why?
Because we particular unemployment issues we study over the period of time.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Excellent. So it should be longitudinal, over a period of time. But you have actually missed a very important point over here. Here basically, because we are trying to study how does unemployment affect mental health over 5 years, so basically we are trying to study the same individual. Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
Same individual over 5 years.
Of 5 years. Yes, sir.
Over 5 years. One thing is using Google scribbling, this one, you need to wipe it out each time. Because it is like writing on the board. So even the answers are there. So you can see match the list 1 with list 2. List 1 variable type. Independent variable, dependent variable, moderating variable, control variable. So independent variable, you can see independent variable. Study hour. Okay. Study hour. So you are saying this is independent variable. Then dependent variable is student exam scores B1. Then moderating variable C3 student motivation level. D control variable prior knowledge. Okay. So cause is the independent variable, that's it, study hour. Dependent variable is the effect, that is scores. Moderator affect the relationship, that is strength. Control, it means held constant. Okay. Sangeeta, are you there? Could you explain the moderating variable once again? Very good question, Ajay. Let us try to see. Moderating variable, like for example, mediating. You have asked mediating, right? So moderating, first you try to understand. Moderating means it affects the strength of the independent variable and dependent variable relationship. For example, gender moderates education and income relationship. Okay? Because sometimes you can see gender, if you are trying to study the effect of education and income, so different and gender have male and female, they have different you can say income level. Then mediating means explain how IV affect DV. Like for example, just education will not ensure that you are having income. Basically you should have skills, right? So your skill mediates. Okay? Is Ajay clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Thanks. Many thanks. Okay. So which of the following are characteristics of a good research problem? Vague and ambiguous. No. Because it's saying characteristics of a good research problem. Specific and clear, feasible with available resources, already fully answered. No. Significant to theory and practice. I think the answer is B, C, E only. One, right? Very good. Then the operational definition of job satisfaction could be feeling happy at work, score on Minnesota satisfaction questionnaire, liking your colleagues. Which one? Yes, Ajay. Which one will be the answer? One. Feeling happy at work. But operational definition, Ajay, again you are committing a mistake. Operational means where we can measure it. So basically score, right? Yeah, you are correct. Next question. In a study on effect of fertilizer on crop yield, a researcher cannot control rainfall because rainfall is a which type of variable? It is basically confounding variable. One, independent variable. No. It cannot control rainfall. So rainfall is an independent variable you are saying, right? Third is, it is confounding variable. 9 is 3. What is a confounding variable? Already we have discussed. So please take a note of what you are asking again and again. Masvita. See? uncontrolled variable that affect the dependent variable and it threatens internal validity. Yesterday I have discussed regarding internal validity. Okay,
Yes,
it's,
sir.
it's referred to uncontrolled variable that affect the dependent variable and it threatens internal validity. Suppose what is the difference between control variable and confounding variable? Control variable is it held constant to isolate IV effect, means the independent variable effect. Example, to control age when studying education and income. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So researcher cannot control rainfall. So in that case, rainfall is a confounding variable, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Because I think why Ajay choose immediately, Ajay told independent variable. I think when you will be an exam hall, maybe this kind of thought process will come to your mind. But you just see, you are trying to study the effect of fertilizer on crop yield, right? So fertilizer is clearly the independent variable on the and crop yield is the dependent variable. So that is why it is categorical written over here. So that is why you have to be patient and you have to study properly.
Okay, sir.
Then question number 9, which statement about pilot study is false? It is conducted before the main study, it tests research instrument, it uses the full sample size, it helps to identify potential problem. 3, it uses the full sample size. Which statement about the pilot study is false? So false. So sometimes you will not read the false and you will answer something else. Then that is problematic.
Yes, sir. Due to our confidence or some kind of things will be there, so we will choose the wrong answer.
Yes. That is why you have to be very careful, right? Next question. Identify component of a research proposal. I think research proposals is going on in our class, right? Yeah, Madhusudha, you are correct. We'll discuss more and I will do counseling for each one of these cases. Identify components of a research proposal. Data fabrication, research objective, research methodology, means methodology, literature review, plagiarism techniques. Choose the correct answer. So Ajay is saying B, C, D. B, C, D. Research objective, methodology, literature review. So data fabrication, of course, it is not part of a research proposal. Plagiarism techniques are not part of research proposal. So three things are important: research objective, methodology, and literature review. Yeah, it is correct. B, C, D. So higher income leads to greater happiness is an example of which type of hypothesis? Null hypothesis, non-directional hypothesis, directional hypothesis. Because it is saying directly there is a positive relationship. So it is a directional. Okay? So which research design would you use to answer? Why do students drop out of college? Exploratory, to understand reasons, descriptive to count dropouts, experimental to test interventions, historical to study the past trends. Now, one is the answer, like we will be using, we will need to understand the reason, right? So that is why we will be trying to use the exploratory research design. So Sangeeta, what is the exploratory research design? Sangeeta? I think Sangeeta is not there. Okay. Maybe she knows all this. So in an experimental research, random assignment helps to increase the sample size, control for confounding variables, collect data faster and reduce research cost. Second is control for confounding variables. Very good, Ajay. Next question. Match research design with their purposes. Design cross-sectional means okay, very good, Ajay. Cross-sectional study, it establishes the causation. No. Cross-sectional means snapshot at one time. Then B, longitudinal means which one? Track changes over time. Exploratory, C is second. Explore new phenomena. D, experimental. D is experimental means
Experimental is establish causations. We will
very good.
study the causal
Excellent.
effect. Yes.
Yes, excellent. Very good participation. Cross-sectional means one time point at a point or on a point of time. Longitudinal is over time. Exploratory is new areas. Experimental is causation. Yes. Next question, we will go to the next question. Which is a valid source of identifying research problems? Gaps in existing literature, personal hunches without evidence, contradiction in previous research, practical problem in society. Choose the correct answer. Yes. Sangeeta is gone.
Yes, sir.
Smriti. Yes. Smriti. Smriti is not there.
Yes, sir.
You are there. Very good. Which is a valid source for identifying research problem? Gaps in existing literature, personal hunches without evidence, contradiction in previous research, practical problems in society. The answer is saying A, C, D. And why B will not be there? Personal hunches without evidence. Means you will say, no, I feel like in Jaipur this is a economic problem. So that is your hunch. There is no evidence. Are you getting? Madhusudha?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Like sometimes we feel from sixth sense that okay, this might be a problem, right?
But we don't have evidence.
Yes. So then that case we are not sure that it is a research problem,
Yes, sir.
right? So that is the reason why A, C, D are correct, not the B.
Yes.
Yes, very good, Ajay. So hunches alone without theoretical or empirical basis are also insufficient. Yes, answer is very good. Yeah. So now we'll go to the next question. Yeah, questions are very long questions. In the hypothesis, increased screen time reduces children's attention span. Identify the independent variable, dependent variable, and the direction. So we'll do quickly because we are running out of time, and the recording will be very lengthy. So independent variable is screen time, dependent variable is attention span, direction is negative over here. Similarly, a researcher studies 100 students in January 2026 to compare online versus offline learners. So this is a basically which type of design, Madhusita?
Research.
One time, na?
One time
Cross-sectional.
cross-sectional.
Cross-sectional, yes. It's a
Yes, sir.
cross-sectional. Who told? Smriti, right? Smriti or Madhusita, who told?
Sir, I also.
Okay, very good, very good. This is the question which came this December. As a junior research fellow, you plagiarize someone's work and you are caught. What is the likely consequences? You will be rewarded for that over time. Means you have done excellent work, so you should get extra money for that. Or the research article is retracted with public documentation explaining the reason. The institute funding your research takes disciplinary action and your academic standing and reputation come into question. So it is clearly the answer is B, C, D. Isn't it, Madhusida?
Yes, sir.
But I don't know, some people they have, why there is a confusion, I don't know. So they have written only B and D. Second, right?
Yes, sir.
Sangeeta is not there, so the plagiarism consequences include article retraction, institutional discipline action, damaged reputation. So option A is wrong. So plagiarism is never encouraged. So these are the what we have discussed. All these 18 questions covered: research process, hypothesis, research design, variables, research problems, operational definitions, pilot study, research proposal, experimental design, research ethics. So we have covered whatever in the last 3 days we did. We have covered all these questions. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now what are the homework? List and explain all the 10 steps in the research process. Write null and alternate hypothesis for does advertising increase sales? Does minimum wage affect the employment? Design a research study on topic of your choice. Problem statement, hypothesis and research design with justification, and give the variables independent variable and the dependent variable, sampling methods. So attempt 30 MCQs on research process and design. Already you have done 18, so 12 more. So now tomorrow we will be having the final day for the day 5. That is thesis and article writing. What are the format and structure, citation style, APA, MLA, Chicago, reference management, ICT in research, research tool and software, data analysis tool, online resources. Then research ethics, plagiarism, research misconduct and ethical guidelines. So you are doing outstanding progress. So what we did today is we have clearly defined 10-step research process, then hypothesis formulation, research design, variables and definitions. So tomorrow is the final day. After that I will do the literature review. I will take one more session. So thesis, ICT and ethics. Okay, very good. Okay, so I'll stop the recording now.